Exciting day today, guys. Exciting day. So yeah, today is the first day we will have seen Nana and Papa since probably my birthday. Before you tip in at me for getting a Macca's coffee, look, it's the best of a bad bunch when you're out in this part of the world. But anyone whose partner lives overseas, or you are the partner who lives overseas, kind of just used to those gaps. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not as big a deal, and that's, sorry mum and dad, but like, you know, you kind of get used to it. Take that back, it's absolute slop. It's not been long enough since my last McDonald's coffee. Ugh. In other exciting news, today is the first day of the new NBA season. Bit of a Kyrie update for you. That's actually not a big update. The rumors is that his team are trying to trade him, which is massive news considering like he's one of the top 5 players in the league, and you know the kind of impact like one player has in a 5-man team. It's massive. So, you know, that's the current status there. But you know what is interesting about this? So again, this comes back to this thing that like the team haven't mandated him to be vaccinated. The league haven't mandated him to be vaccinated. This comes down to where he plays, so the state of New York City mandating that he can't go into the arena unless he's vaccinated. And I thought you might find this interesting because we're doing the contracts for the riders, the UCI contracts for the riders for 2022 at the moment, and we decided not to include any mandate for vaccination in their contracts. And a little bit of that just comes back to what I was saying the other day, that this isn't, I think, going to be down to teams. I don't think it's going to be down to governing bodies. It's going to be more about the locations. And like if you look at, hopefully we're going to get some international starts next year. If you are not vaccinated, you won't be able to go. So it's almost putting the responsibility back on the rider to be realistic about what they're going to need to do to want to do things instead of mandating it in contracts. I'm interested in your thoughts on that. What's maybe happening in your workplace, what's happening in your own community sport area. And yeah, it's certainly something that I'm kind of keen to follow up and see how it goes. All right, crack on with a little bit and then hopefully we'll get out on the bike a bit later.
Knowing your body feels so tired to get out of bed. You put your heart on a letter to chase it away.
Just on the American sport thing, like, you probably think I'm some sort of sad American fanboy. There's probably a little bit of that, but also the fact I lived there for a bit, but mostly comes from like a sports management perspective. Like, the way I look at it, you got these 3 leagues, like the NBA, the WNBA, and the NFL, and they are the most elite sports and sports organizations in the world. Dallas Cowboys are the biggest sports organization in the world. From a player management perspective, team culture perspective, to look at how that plays out at that level, you can just learn so much. No, it doesn't mean we're going to be signing Ben Carmen to a $121 million max extension at the end of the year. The way they do things is interesting, and it's not always right. Like, I find the NBA interesting because one player makes such a difference to a team's performance, a franchise's performance. Like, because you only have 5, it's so unique. And also the NFL, because one position makes such an impact, quarterback, compared to, defensive lineman, but that impact of that individual on the performance is so dramatic, and it's the extremes. Like, what you have playing out at the moment in Philadelphia is a player who's on $100 million a year, doesn't want to play for them, so he just doesn't turn up to training. Then they started finding him, so he starts turning up to training, but he's just taking the piss when he turns up. It's just amazing that, like, at that level, it still comes down to man management, because he's pissed off that at the end of the last season, his coach didn't back him. You know, it just purely comes down to relationships. Put aside the cash. he's willing to set aside the $100 million because of that relationship breakdown. So, I don't know, I just find it fascinating. Yeah, so keep it locked here, guys, for updates.
Think of you when I'm sleeping with someone new.
Tell you what, it's going to be some fit boys and girls when the racing starts up if the number of people going past me is anything to judge by in here today. Yeah, so just did some 30-second, 30 on stuff. Far from me to be giving training advice, but one thing I would say is don't get caught up with that session because the gains on it are quite small. They're quite limited. You're better off doing proper VO2 stuff. I do it a bit if, to be honest, I probably was going to take a rest day today, but it looks like tomorrow is going to be the wet day. So I thought, oh look, I'll try and just throw a little bit of intensity in and then have an easy couple of days. So it's also one of those ones that, like, mentally it's kind of easy to do. So that's the first time I've had that happen since I had the Ridley. So the wedge saddles just dropped down. But, I know some of the guys have had that problem. I'd normally been running that collar in here. I hadn't been running it on this bike because I didn't think I needed it. I've been so smug about that too. Like, anyone who's had like the saddle slip of, oh, doesn't happen on mine, no problems here. Yeah, look, I must have not torqued it properly after I swapped the saddles over. My bad, because you can really crank these saddles. Like, they say like 10 Newton meters on there. And I'd never had it budge, so oh well. I'll get the collar back on, I think. So can someone explain this shit show to me? So the bike path ends. Am I meant to ride over there now? I'm now in a bus thing. I've got a light rail over there. Do I now cross this? Now I've got a red light to cross because I won't trigger anything. So I go across this. There's a pedestrian crossing here with people there. I swing around this. Like, I realise I've just done 700 illegal things, but I genuinely don't know what else to do there. Because you get down to this bit, and it's awesome. Like, this Darling Drive bike path, like, this is legitimately fantastic. It services all the people in these buildings. They can cruise their way in. It's so good. I just don't know what that situation is. Did you ever hear any of that conversation on basketball? He was like, oh, well, who's your favourite AFL team? The guy's like, Melbourne. That dude is more of a bandwagon than I am.
I don't think that's possible.
I don't think he's been on the bandwagon for 70 years, and this just happened to be the year.
Technically, none of what you've said so far matters.
No. Well, nothing that I ever say really matters. I think that's the key point.
Exactly.
Nothing really matters. Everything is vacuous. Nothing really matters. What's that? It's a song? Potentially.
Yeah.
I realised, actually, that I haven't had this bike serviced. Like, it has not been serviced, which is quite strange for me. Normally I see a lot of bike servicing type people. Yeah, I suppose this is just a bit of a shout, guys, with things opening up. Just try and get back out to your local bike shops, support them. It's been, yes, there's a lot of demand in the cycling space, but local bike shops certainly haven't seen massive gains in that. So I personally need to get back out to see Felice. I'm not sure whether he's seen customers in person yet or how that's playing out. So if someone can let me know down below. I've kind of wanted to give him space because he was in the epicenter in Canterbury. So hopefully everything is ticking along really well there. Big shout, of course, to Aaron for putting together the white bike for me. Yeah, get out to your local bike shop, guys. Support them. What are you most looking forward to next week going back to school?
I'm looking forward to art the most because I just like painting because I don't get to paint much. Like,
we are looking forward to seeing your art. So yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Kira Ann is currently, well, she's not currently, that's where we're going because she's in kindy and she's back at school. I tell you what she's doing. She's subscribing to the channel and liking this video.
No, she's not.
Preparing a solid side eye.
Indeed. Alrighty. Talk to you soon. Yeah, it's in the end, nothing really matters.
No, I think
No?
it's
Metallica?
definite.
In the end, nothing. Would it be?
Doesn't even matter. Sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter.
Or nothing really matters.
It just has a U2 feel to it, but you're right, it's not that. Incubus?
Oh, possibly. Yes.
Hmm.